Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7 tenths remaining. Conley now a three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. Ja Morant, insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Grizzlies Win Edition. My name is Keith Parish. The Grizzlies took care of business at home, winning back-to-back games on New Year's Eve and on New Year's Day. And they were big games against Western Conference foes. First, on Saturday night, they took care of the Pelicans, who came into FedEx Forum as the number one team in the Western Conference. And then the Grizzlies followed that up on Sunday with a going away victory over a pesky Sacramento Kings team. These were huge Western Conference games. The Grizzlies pull into a winning record now in the Western Conference. They're 11-10 against the West. They are now 15-3 in their home games. If you're going to draw a narrative arc for these two games, or if you're describing what happened, you start always with Ja Morant, who scored 30 points or more in each of the two home games. But then I think very quickly you have to turn to Steven Adams. Steven Adams, who's posted now 3 consecutive double-doubles. Steven Adams on Sunday pulled down 23 rebounds, which tied a career high. He pulled down a career high 13 offensive rebounds. That's the most offensive rebounds for any player in any game this year. Steven Adams becomes the first Grizzlies player in franchise history to have back-to-back 20-rebound games. So Steven Adams has huge games against the Kings, and on Saturday night, he had a huge game against his former team, a revenge game against the Pelicans, where he had 10 points and 21 rebounds. So Steven Adams has been stepping up with some mammoth rebounding totals, helping the squad out. The whole story of these games, it's not just Ja, it's not just Steven, but those are like your bookends of the story of these two Grizzlies wins. And honestly, Steven now making a push for being possibly the most underrated player in the NBA. I know that's a common topic of discussion for any fan base that feels aggrieved about this guy being underrated, But I think literally, if you look at all of the weird NBA ranks that have come out in the last year of top 100 players in the NBA, show me one that Steven Adams is listed on. He's not. He made mincemeat out of Jonas Valanciunas once again. Jonas sometimes pops up on these top 100 lists. Jonas, bless his heart, he fouled out in the game on Saturday night. 6 points and 6 rebounds. In his last 5 games against the Grizzlies and Steven Adams, he averages 6 points. He averages 3 rebounds. So this 6 was a huge boost up. In the 7 games that Jonas Valanciunas has played against the Grizzlies since the trade, since Steven Adams and Jonas Valanciunas were traded for each other, Steven Adams has 75 rebounds and Jonas has 28. Steven Adams, for whatever reason, has not gotten the respect for his impact on winning. Right now, Steven Adams has the 3rd best offensive rebound percentage for a season ever posted. The highest offensive rebound percentage we have data for was Dennis Rodman, and then Jason Williams, not White Chocolate, shotgun accident, played for the Nets, Jason Williams. Those have higher rebound percentages, offensive rebound percentages, than what Steven Adams is currently posting. Leads the NBA, obviously, in that category. He's first in the NBA in offensive rebounds per game. I know we want to make this, he's underrated. Also, is he an all-star? All right. It's going to be hard for Steven Adams to make an all-star case. I mean, you would start with, okay, he's the best offensive rebounder in the game. He's a legit elite rebounder overall. He's 5th in rebounds per game. Then you basically have to go to impact on winning, which is too nebulous and hard to quantify to really mount a campaign. He's 2nd in screen assists and screen assist points per game. We're not going there. But Steven Adams has a huge impact on winning, and it is notable when he goes up against guys who are rated ahead of him on various publications' NBA rankings. When he goes up against guys who are all-stars and Steven Adams dominates them, well, then it's got to get your attention a little bit. Like Domantas Sabonis is an all-star. He's had a great season so far this year on the Kings. Kings fans will unanimously say, Sabonis deserves to be in the All-Star game. Sabonis put up a solid double-double against the Grizzlies. But in the fourth quarter, when it mattered, when Steven Adams got 6 of his offensive rebounds in the fourth quarter alone, Sabonis had 0 rebounds in the entire fourth quarter. If you watched just the fourth quarter and you asked someone who didn't know much about the NBA, hey, which one of these centers is the All-Star? Ain't nobody picking Sabonis. Steven Adams was just moving him wherever he wanted to be. Steven Adams got there and just shoved Sabonis aside. Couldn't match up. Similarly against the Pelicans, that they couldn't do anything when Steven Adams was out there. This 3-game run that Steven Adams is on, going back to the Raptors game, he's posted in successive games 14 points, 17 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal. That was against the Raptors. The Raptors had notably just given up a huge game to Ivica Zubac the game before. They don't really have any bigs they can play. They were playing Pascal Siakam as the center. He's not big enough to guard Steven Adams. Okay. The next game against the Pelicans, well, they have some beef in the middle with Jonas. Nope. Steven with 10 points, 21 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. And then going up against the All-Star Sabonis on Sunday night, Steven Adams, 11 points, 23 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, and 2 blocks. And so you combine that with some good role players stepping up for the Grizzlies. John Conchar finding his rhythm again, with Ja Morant playing at an elite all-NBA level. Jaren Jackson Jr. All right, one of the stories of the weekend is Jaren Jackson Jr. played his first back-to-back of the season. So Jaren Jackson Jr. is giving you good contributions. And it adds up to winning 3 straight games. And now the Grizzlies have emerged from this gauntlet, this really tough schedule, the thing that we highlighted before it happened during the year in the preseason. On paper, the Grizzlies' schedule is really, really hard. And it got a little thorny there as the Grizzlies dropped 4 out of 5. But now looking back at the last 10 games, starting with, all right, home games against the Hawks and Bucks. Then there was the big road trip. Then you had to come home and play the Suns. You got humiliated. And then it was at Toronto, back home for a back-to-back against the Pelicans and the Kings. You come out of that 6-4. You win the first 2. You win the last 3. Yeah, you lost 4 out of 5 in the middle there, but you'll take it. Honestly, it's kind of like a movie. If a movie has a good opening and a great ending, you can put anything in the middle. And most people are going to walk away happy. Works for music, too. Just stick the ending. But the Grizzlies have won 3 straight now, and the schedule's not totally easy coming up. There are some challenges. But the Grizzlies find themselves back near the top of the Western Conference. They're 10 games over 500 again. And you got to think, at least you hope, you're optimistic that good health is on the way. At least better health than what they've had so far this year. Now, there were notable lineup things about the game against the Kings. Because of it being the second night of a back-to-back, the question was, will Jaren play in this one? And yes, he did. Desmond Bane, who shook off some rust in the game against the Pelicans on Saturday, he had the night off against the Kings. Brandon Clark, I don't know how serious his injury is. I think we all assume it was the night off. Brandon Clark did not play on the second night of a back-to-back. Santi Aldama, dealing with that ankle injury, did not play the second night of a back-to-back, nor the first night. The interesting one and the troublesome one is Zaire Williams. Zaire Williams was a late scratch for the game against the Pelicans, as in he was scratched 30 minutes after tip-off. It was one of those, hey, why hasn't Zaire checked in yet? And then it's like, he's out with knee soreness. So he missed both games this weekend. The Zaire injury, I would call it highly concerning. Zaire missed a lot of time with that patellar tendonitis in his right knee, and now he's out kind of unexpectedly, where he wasn't listed as being questionable for the game. And then once the game starts, it's like, he can't go. Taylor Jenkins was specifically asked about this, if this injury to Zaire's knee is the same injury or problem he was dealing with at the start of the year. Taylor Jenkins said, no, different injury. I mean, it's the same knee. Both times there's a soreness. Well, I'll take Taylor Jenkins' word, but I'll give that like a one fully raised eyebrow. We'll just wait and see, I guess. For me, as an outsider fan, it seems extremely concerning that Zaire Williams misses in a couple games with knee soreness once again. The good news is, like I said, Bane was back. This return to play stuff, I don't know how long it'll start, where he's going to miss back-to-back games. The Grizzlies have 2 sets of back-to-back games in the next week or so. They play Wednesday, Thursday on the road, Hornets and Magic. And then they have back-to-back home games against the Jazz and Spurs. Like, will Bane miss the second half of both of those? We don't know. Something to monitor, something to keep an eye on. But because of not having Clark, not having Aldama, not having Zaire Williams, not having Bane, the Grizzlies' rotation was very interesting. I felt like against the Kings, we saw Jake LaRavia play. We hadn't seen him in a while. We got Kennedy Chandler minutes, and I thought that was probably the most interesting thing. With Ja Morant and Tyus Jones healthy, they still played Kennedy Chandler. The Grizzlies played 2 point guards for a majority of this game. The beneficiary, probably you'd say, was Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones had a big game, 18 points, 8 assists, 0 turnovers. He tied a career high with 5 made three-pointers. The Grizzlies, yes, use their point guards a lot. They've been playing a lot of Tyus and Ja together. Still, Tyus is bringing the ball up the court a lot, but they wanted to, I guess they felt like it's better to have the extra ball handler out there, and it paid off for him. Kennedy Chandler played 13-something minutes, all of them, alongside Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones played 32 minutes off the bench in a regulation game. That's pretty wild. But it was clicking for the Grizzlies. One thing that's notable about these games, I thought was interesting, there was some similarities. There are some statistical abnormalities about both of the games, but both of these games were close through 3 quarters. Both games, it was essentially a 2-point game near the end of the third. Against the Pelicans on Saturday night, it was the Pelicans' second game of a back-to-back, and it felt like a typical, they faded in the fourth quarter. They went away. The Grizzlies started the fourth quarter on a nice little run. Jaren Jackson Jr. banked in a three-pointer. He did not mean to bank in the three-pointer. Put the Grizzlies up 7. They went on a run. They spread it out. They eventually got up by 22. Just, ran the Pelicans out of the gym in the fourth quarter. Against the Kings on Sunday, very similar thing. The Kings were within a few points. They were within 3, really close to the end of the third quarter. And then you come out in the fourth quarter. This time, Tyus Jones banks in a three-pointer. Puts the Grizzlies up 9. It was a 3-point game. I remember Jaren hit a 3, put up 6. A couple of possessions later, Tyus Jones accidentally banks in a three-pointer. So the Grizzlies got banked in three-pointers on both nights. First time it was to go up 7 in the fourth. The second time it was to go up 9 in the fourth, and they pull away. The notable weird stat about the Pelicans game is the Grizzlies, for the entire game, only made 5 three-pointers. They won by 15 points, making 5 three-pointers for the game. This is a game that Desmond Bane played in. 5 three-pointers, and you won by 15. The Grizzlies haven't done that since 2017. Back when Zebo was coming off the bench behind JaMychal Green. The Grizzlies beat the Pelicans down without making any three-pointers. Obviously, the Pelicans didn't make very many three-pointers themselves. The weird thing about the Kings game that I thought was the strangest about the second half was the Grizzlies won the third quarter against the Kings. It's not odd that the Grizzlies win the third quarter. The Grizzlies are the highest scoring third quarter team in the NBA. Ja Morant's been on a tear in third quarters. In Ja Morant's last 10 games, he averages 12 points in just third quarters. But the Grizzlies won the third quarter against the Kings despite losing the three-point battle 6 makes to 1 make. And then in the fourth quarter, when the Grizzlies put the Kings away, the Kings shot 60% in the fourth quarter against the Grizzlies. The Kings shot 60% in the fourth quarter. Didn't matter. Grizzlies won because the Grizzlies got they got most of all the rebounds. They could not be stopped on the offensive glass. So the Grizzlies got more field goal attempts than the Kings. And that's how you pull away behind those Tyus and Ja lineups where Steven Adams is the only big. They played a lot of that in the fourth quarter. Conchar, Dylan Brooks playing big minutes again. Going back to the Pelicans game on Saturday, this was a throwback not just in the sense they didn't make any three-pointers, but it was a throwback with the steals and the blocks. Jaren was a big part of that. Jaren has feasted this season in the 3 games against the Pelicans. He has 14 blocks in 3 games against the Pelicans. He had 6 blocks and 3 steals this time. The Grizzlies posted double-digit steals and blocks in this game. It's the second time this year they've had double-digit steals and blocks. Last season, they did it 4 times. The steals, of which I've been kind of gnashing my teeth about how they've been down most of the time, the steals are definitely ticking back upwards. In December, the Grizzlies were 3rd in the NBA in steals per game. And that's despite only having 4 against Toronto, where they tied their season low against Toronto with 4 steals. They then followed that with a season-high 14 against the Pelicans. They forced Zion Williamson into 9 turnovers. It was the Pelicans' worst shooting game of the season. The Pelicans made only 35% of their field goal attempts. In back-to-back games, the Grizzlies held the Pelicans to their worst field goal percentage game of the season, and then the Kings to their second worst field goal percentage game of the season. And that's despite the Kings, again, making 9 of 15 fourth-quarter field goal attempts, making 60% of their shots in the fourth quarter. In that Pelicans game, here's another Steven Adams stat. Steven had his career high. He tied his career high with 16 defensive rebounds in that game. Here's a stat from that Steven Adams stats Twitter account. Steven Adams had his 64th offensive rebound off a free throw in the last 5 seasons, and nobody else in the league has more than 25. I don't have that stat vetted. I don't even know how to look that up, but I'm guessing that Steven Adams stats account, why would they mislead us? I'm guessing that stat is accurate. Another important thing about these wins is they are the second wins of the season against both of these teams. The Grizzlies lead the season series against the Kings and Pelicans 2-1 now. I don't know if a tiebreaker is going to matter with the Kings. I doubt it. A tiebreaker very well could matter against the Pelicans in the race for playoff seeding. So the Grizzlies have a 2-1 lead there, but they play the Pelicans again in April. By the way, Tyus against the Pelicans also had 8 assists. So in the last 2 games, Tyus posted 26 points, 16 assists, made 7 out of 10 threes, and had 0 turnovers. So huge games for Tyus the past 2. Roddy off the bench, not a great game against the Pelicans. He had 4 turnovers, was 1 for 5 from the field, missed all 4 of his 3-point attempts. He was 0 for 3 from 3 against the Kings, had 5 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal. Was also 1 out of 4 from the foul line. Now, David Roddy, I believe, shot 88% from the line in Summer League. And I was like, wow, what a great free throw stroke. And then the regular season, he started off really, really well from the foul line. But now he's made just 2 out of his last 9 free throws. which is real bad. He's under 60% from the foul line. Hopefully it's just a funk. He's lost his confidence a little bit there. Dillon battled foul trouble despite having to guard, Zion. He played 27 minutes but had 5 fouls. Roddy did at least contribute despite that 0 for 4 from 3 against the Pelicans by being a body to put on Zion Williamson. They do not want Jaren to try to guard Zion. So Roddy at least had the physicality, and despite having a lackluster box score, he contributed a lot on the defensive end and helped the Grizzlies get that victory. Him and Conchar had some moments where they would collapse on Zion and force him into some of those turnovers. Conchar finishes the game with 3 steals, broke out of his funk a little bit with 12 points. He's now averaging 10.3 points in his last 3 games, getting heavier minutes, obviously starting the last one against the Kings. Also in that Kings game, posted a pretty spectacular highlight of making an and one on a reverse layup, a play that gave the Grizzlies the lead late in the third quarter. He then had an alley-oop layup finish from Tyus Jones, part of the Grizzlies, putting on a little bit of a run with the second unit as the Grizzlies took control of the game. Let's take a quick break, and then I'll be back with some more stats to wrap this show up, including some talk about Ja Morant's spectacular numbers. We'll do that right after this. Fast Break Breakfast and Grits and Grinds are now video podcasts. Fast Break Breakfast, hosted by me, Keith Parish, with John Burr and Chuck Anderson, serves up serious NBA analysis in a not-so-serious way. Then there's Grits and Grinds, which you're listening to right now. It is for the obsessed Grizz fan, just like you know, and it is available on YouTube. So, subscribe to Grits and Grinds and Fast Break Breakfast on YouTube or in any podcast player or at grindcitymedia.com. All right, a few more stats to wrap this one up. A couple more about Steven Adams. He's currently averaging a career high in defensive rebounds, offensive rebounds, and blocks. He's 20th in the NBA in blocks per game right now. The 44 rebounds that Steven posted in the last 2 games, that's tied for the most in Grizzlies franchise history over any 2-game span with Jonas Valanciunas. The other players to have 40 or more rebounds in a 2-game span, Zebo had 42 and 40 in 2 separate instances, and then Lorenzen Wright had a 2-game span with 40 rebounds. Against the Kings, Ja Morant had 35 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists. Once again, a big third quarter. That was Ja's 14th game of his career with at least 35 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Every other player in Grizzlies franchise history combined has 12 of those games. Through Ja's age 23 season, Ja now has the 9th most 35, 5-5 games in NBA history. Of course, Ja still has more than half of his age 23 season left to try to catch some of these guys. But the 8 guys ahead of Ja for the most 35 point, 5 rebound, 5 assist games through their age 23 seasons. It's LeBron, Luka, Oscar Robertson, Tracy McGrady, Michael Jordan, Trae Young, Rick Barry, and Devin Booker. It is very feasible that Ja catches and passes Devin Booker, Rick Barry, and Trae Young. He's 8 such games behind Michael Jordan for the 5th most ever. I don't know if he'll get there this season or not. The Grizzlies, thanks in no small part to holding the Kings and Pelicans well below their season averages from the field, the Grizzlies lead the league in field goal percentage defense. The Grizzlies in 2022 had 55 wins in the calendar year. That was the 4th most in the NBA. The Grizzlies just this past December, we had that low point where we lost 4 out of 5, but still, you remember there's the big win streak, the 7-game win streak to start it. So the Grizzlies posted the 2nd best record in the NBA in December. And like I said, the steals are ticking up, and contributing to that is Jaren Jackson Jr. He's on pace right now to be one of the only guys ever to average 3 blocks and 1 steal per game. Can he keep it up? Who knows? If he does, he absolutely has a case for Defensive Player of the Year. I know Jaron was saying that Dillon is the best defender in the game, and there might be a fringe Defensive Player of the Year campaign for Dillon Brooks, but I say let's be realistic. He's not going to win it. Let's focus all of our energy on Jaren Jackson Jr., the steal and block numbers, and then the on-off ratings, the defensive ratings, the analytics are going to favor Jaren. I mean, the opponent field goal percentage differences when Jaren is on the court. It was on the court. Like, teams shoot 40% when Jaren Jackson Jr. is on the court. That's awesome. So because of that, you combine that with hopefully the team success we assume is coming for the rest of the regular season, and Jaren has a great case for the Hakeem Olajuwon Defensive Player of the Year award. Anyways, the Grizzlies are back at it on Wednesday night. They got a road game on Thursday night. I will be doing a playback watch party once again for the second half of the Grizzlies Magic game. It'll be second half of a back-to-back. Hopefully the Grizzlies pull through. The Magic have been tough recently. They're honestly very, very fun to watch, what with Paolo Banchero and Bol and other guys. So if you want to join my playback room on Thursday, I'll be doing the second half of that game over there. Anyways, I hope you had a great New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. The Grizzlies certainly did their part to make the festive activities feel even more festive. I hope you have a great Monday. I will talk to you soon. Go Grizz.